Have you ever felt like homeschool has turned you into a drill sergeant? You say it kindly, you say it firmly, you say it again, and then still nothing happens. Or on the flip side, you turn into a person who gives their kids all the freedom they want and still nothing happens. Well, the problem might not be you, and it might not be your kids either. It might just be how they're wired to respond to expectations. Hey, I'm Molly Christensen. I am a homeschool mom of seven. I've been homeschooling now for about 25 years. I have five launched and two left at home, and it is an amazing adventure. I love it. So, in my homeschool journey, I have helped hundreds of parents and move from constant battles to peaceful, productive days just by learning these motivation styles. And we can take the power struggle out. So, once you understand what motivates your child, and I'm not just talking about stickers or money, you can finally ditch the daily drama and teach in a way that actually works. So, today we're going to talk about this simple framework that has totally changed the way I've approached motivation with my kids, and it has definitely taken a lot of the power struggles and turned homeschool into more of a partnership. All right, so there's something that makes homeschool very tricky because what it is that we have these different roles that we have to show up as, right? We are the mom, but we're also like the teacher or the guide for our kids, and that does make the expectations very tricky. Now, power struggles often come because we have mismatched styles of motivation, okay? So sometimes we assume that kids should just do things because we said so. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Right? But, what if they just don't respond to that kind of motivation? Now, I have a couple kids who will do that, but mostly they don't, right? So I read this book a couple years ago and it was very eye-opening, and it was The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And truthfully, I thought it sounded like a really boring book, but I'd heard it recommended, so I gave it a try. Okay, so in this book, what she basically teaches is that people have different tendencies on how they respond to outer and inner expectations. Okay, and so for example, um, there are four different types that she's identified. She did a ton of research and surveys and scientific studies and all this on people. And really, you can find that most people will fall into one of these four main types. So the first type would be the upholder, and that type is somebody who meets both their own personal expectations, that's their inner expectations, and people's outer expectations. Okay, so they really like to have the rules very clear, and they will follow the rules, and they will follow the rules for themselves as well. So these are your checklist kids. These are the ones who will do what you ask them to do because you ask them to, right? They're going to do their work because it's expected and it feels good to follow through. And they are pretty easy to homeschool, especially if you are also an upholder. So the hard thing about an upholder is that sometimes they're going to try to make sure everybody else is following the rules, and even when there aren't rules there, maybe they have made up some rules. So the next type is the obliger. And an obliger is going to meet the outer expectations, but they're going to struggle making them do things for themselves, the inner expectations. They're going to do it for you unless you're an obliger too, because then you're going to let them off the hook and they'll know it. Uh, but they probably will fall apart when no one's watching. If you give them too much freedom, they're going to really struggle getting themselves to do things. Like I have a daughter who I would ask her to do her math, and she'd say, sure. And then I would give her time to do the math, and I would expect it to be done by the end of the week. And when I would check in, she wouldn't have done it because she could not get herself to do it. So the obligers, they're going to thrive on having that accountability, check-ins, encouragement, and really co-op classes, because sometimes that accountability cannot come from you as the parent, because sometimes you're so close to them, it's almost like um, they don't feel obliged to do what you ask. Okay, the next one is the questioner. A questioner will meet their own inner expectations, but not they're going to question anything outside of them asks them to do. They're going to definitely question the authority. And they're not just going to do the worksheet because you said to, because if they think it's stupid, they're not going to do it, right? They're going to question everything. They need to know why things matter. And so with questioners, you've got to be giving them choices, explanations, and real world connections. So I have several questioners, and once you figure that out, that they're not just trying to rebel against you and be angry with you, um, and or question everything you say, and you just let them run with it and you teach them good core foundations, then they're going to be really easy to homeschool because they're going to do what they choose to do. And if they're choosing good things, then that is awesome. And they're going to run with it. And like what my oldest son was a questioner and well still is, and he I would tell him things like try to set up boundaries or rules with him, and he'd be like, why should I do that? And I would try to explain why, and if it made sense to him, he'd follow it. If it didn't make sense, then he probably wasn't going to follow it. And at one point he even told me, Mom, you should know by now I'm only going to follow my own rules. And at this time, I didn't know that there were these different motivation types. And that really kind of threw me for a loop because I was like, wow, well, you better make sure your rules are good. And luckily they were for that kid, but it was surprising to me as the parental figure to hear that. Um, and then the last tendency is the rebel. And not all rebels look like leather coat, motorcycle riding, long-haired guys or whatever. But this is just the motivational tendency, right? They're going to resist